Have you ever noticed that the more kind and helpful you are, the more people start to take advantage of you? That's no coincidence. Machiavelli, one of the most realistic thinkers in history, once said, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." And that phrase perfectly sums up what many of us experience without even realizing it. The truth is, there are people who see your kindness as a weakness. They test your limits, ask for more and more, and when you try to set a boundary, they make you feel guilty. Want to see a common example? The person who always helps everyone, who is there to listen, to support, to lend a hand. At first, everyone praises them, but over time, they are emotionally drained, betrayed by the same people they tried to help, and left alone. And what did they do wrong? Nothing. They were just too good to people who only wanted to take advantage. Today, you're going to understand why this happens. And before we move on, take a second to check if the notification bell here on the channel is turned on. That way, you won't miss any content like this, which can open your eyes in a way no one else will show you. Being kind is an admirable quality. Being gentle, empathetic, helpful, it all seems right, and it is. But the problem arises when that kindness is offered without limits. When you say yes to everything, even when it hurts or exhausts you. When you try to please everyone, afraid of seeming selfish, that's when manipulators come into play. Machiavelli, in his work The Prince, warned us about the power games present in human relationships. For him, emotions can be weapons in the wrong hands, and those who don't understand that end up being used. The manipulator doesn't see your kindness as a virtue, but as a weakness, and uses it against you. They start slowly. First, they ask for simple favors. Then, they demand more. And when you hesitate or try to set boundaries, they make you feel guilty. "Wow, I thought you were more understanding. You've always helped me, why not now?" And that's it. You give in again, even against your will. Machiavelli said that human beings tend to be ungrateful, fickle, and selfish. That's why those who want to protect themselves need to learn to balance kindness with firmness. Because the world isn't made only of good people, and many times the ones who seem the nicest are the best at manipulating. Another important point: manipulators know where to strike. They sense who has a soft heart. They test your limits. And when they see that you avoid confrontation, that you'd rather suffer in silence than disappoint someone, they take control of the situation. Have you ever been through this? Ever found yourself saying yes while inside you were screaming? No, that's the trap. You keep giving in, and when you realize it, you're living someone else's life, not your own. You're doing for others what no one does for you, and the worst part, you're tired, frustrated, feeling used, but still, you keep smiling. Machiavelli didn't want you to become cold, but he wanted you to see reality. He knew that those who don't set limits become targets, that those who are predictably kind predictably give in. And then comes the painful but necessary question: are you being kind, or are you being controlled? The difference between a good person and a naive person is awareness. A good person helps, but knows their limits. They care, but also protect themselves. The naive person thinks that if they're good enough, everyone will reciprocate. But the real world doesn't work like that. You need to learn to say no without guilt. You need to understand that respecting yourself isn't selfish, it's emotional intelligence. Because the more you erase yourself for others, the less you recognize yourself. Machiavelli once said, "Power lies in the hands of those who understand how people work." And the truth is, if you want to live with dignity, you need to understand that being good is not enough. You need to be good, with limits. In the end, kindness won't destroy you, but the absence of limits will. And you? Have you ever trusted someone, been 100% genuine, and that person simply used your kindness against you? How did that affect you inside? Tell me below. because your story might open the eyes of many who haven't realized how manipulated they are. If you recognize these tactics and know how much they can affect our lives, leave a like below. Your like not only helps me bring more content like this, but also helps more people protect themselves from these manipulators. How manipulators see your kindness. To them, your kindness is not nobility, it's emotional weakness. It's an open door to control. They think, if he or she doesn't know how to say no, then I can ask for anything. And so the power game begins. Machiavelli already warned us, human beings are driven by self-interest, and those who don't learn to protect themselves end up being used. The manipulator observes, analyzes, and attacks with subtlety. They don't yell, they praise, ask, involve, and when they notice that you are emotionally vulnerable, they go further. They make you feel responsible for their happiness. Say things like, "You're the only person I trust. Without you, I can't make it." It seems like affection, but it's a prison disguised as care. The truth is, they have a radar to detect those who are afraid to displease, who live seeking approval, and they know exactly what to say to trigger your guilt and keep you submissive. Machiavelli said appearances are deceiving, and many pretend to be good just to achieve their goals. The manipulator masters this art, knows how to seem like a victim, knows how to cry, knows how to say, "I love you," with the coldness of someone who just wants to keep you around. And the cruelest part is that most of the time, the manipulated person takes a long time to realize it. Why? Because they were trained to believe that being good means accepting everything, that true love requires sacrifice, that being loyal means never saying no. But it doesn't. Being good is not accepting abuse. Being loyal is not erasing yourself. Loving is not carrying someone else on your back until you collapse. The manipulator feeds on your need to please, uses your compassion against you, and when you try to walk away, they change tactics. They become the victim, say you're being cruel, cold, ungrateful, and you go back, even knowing something is wrong. Machiavelli taught that power lies not only in strength, but in understanding human weaknesses, and that is the greatest weapon of manipulators. Knowing your pain, your fears, your desire to be loved, they test you, push you little by little until you no longer realize where you are. And if you think this only happens in romantic relationships, think again. This pattern shows up in friendships, at work, in family. The co-worker who asks for everything and never helps. The boss who takes advantage of your dedication. The relative who says you've changed just because you set boundaries. This has a name, emotional manipulation, and their favorite weapon, your kindness. It's hard to admit, but often being too nice means giving up on yourself. It means always putting others first. And when that becomes routine, you start to lose yourself, to no longer know who you are outside others' expectations. But there is a way out. It starts when you understand that kindness is not servitude, that saying no is an act of love for yourself, that boundaries are bridges, not walls. Those who respect yours stay, those who don't never truly valued you. This is the true strength Machiavelli advocated, the intelligence to see the game and decide how to play. If you want to understand even more about how to protect yourself from manipulators and always stay one step ahead, subscribe to the channel now. That way, you won't miss any new videos full of valuable tips and strategies that will transform the way you see people's behavior around you. Manipulators don't attack in an obvious way. They are subtle, like a predator watching its prey before striking. Every gesture, every word, every request is a strategic move to destabilize you and take control. Machiavelli, the master of manipulation and intrigue, already warned us that power lies in perception, and manipulators use this to the fullest to distort reality in their favor. They know that a good person, always willing to help, becomes an easy target. What I'm going to show you now are some of the most common psychological tactics used against people like you. Emotional guilt. Wow, I thought you were different. This phrase may seem harmless, but it carries an extremely powerful emotional weight. When you hear it, the first thing you do is question your own character. You think, could I really have done more? Am I the one at fault in this situation? And so you start to feel guilty, even when you did the right thing. This is the essence of emotional manipulation. The manipulator makes you feel responsible for their expectations, and the guilt becomes yours for not meeting their demands. And as Machiavelli teaches, when you're under the weight of guilt, you become more vulnerable, easier to control. Gaslighting with empathy. You're exaggerating. I only asked because I trust you. Here, the manipulator uses gaslighting, a psychological technique where they distort reality and make you doubt your perception of facts. They know that if they appear empathetic enough, you'll feel bad for doubting them. This phrase is a disguised way to control your view of the situation, making you question whether you're really exaggerating. They reverse the roles, becoming the victims and making you feel like you're being cruel for setting boundaries. This is one of the most effective tactics to destabilize someone, and Machiavelli understood that this psychological game is a powerful weapon for manipulators. Excessive demands. They ask for more than you can give, and when you say no, they make you look like the villain. The manipulator will always ask for more than you can give, whether emotionally, physically, or financially. They test your limits, and the more you give in, the more they ask. And when you finally say no or try to set a limit, they turn their backs on you and make you feel like the villain. Now, you're the selfish one, the one who doesn't care. They'll distort the situation and manipulate the perceptions of others around you, making you seem like the negative person when in fact you were just trying to protect yourself. Machiavelli, in his writings, understood that emotional control is one of the keys to manipulating someone, and manipulators do this exactly as he described, by creating a narrative where you're always the villain. Gradually testing limits. They ask for small favors until they become big demands. Manipulators don't start by asking for impossible things. They start with simple requests that seem harmless, and gradually those requests become more demanding. At first, you might think it's just a normal friendship or relationship, but over time, you start to realize that you're being emotionally drained, and before you know it, you're doing more for them than for yourself. They move forward step by step until you no longer know where your needs end and theirs begin. They do this because they know that if they start with something big, you'd probably say no. But by starting with small concessions, you get used to saying yes until no becomes rare. Machiavelli believed that in the game of power, the key to success is to win gradually, without the other party realizing they're being manipulated. The manipulator uses this to their advantage, slowly testing your limits until you're completely submissive to them. Machiavelli, although often seen as cruel or manipulative, was not in fact evil. He was realistic. To him, the world was a place of constant challenges and people always seeking power. And as he well knew, in the game of power, kindness, as noble as it may seem, can be your greatest weakness. In his world, and in ours too, anyone who wants to stay in control must understand the motivations of others. As he said in The Prince, "What men expect more than kindness is that you be useful." In other words, it's about being strategic more than just good. For Machiavelli, excessive kindness is dangerous. Why did he think so? Because people who are too good are predictable. And in a world where predictability is the key to manipulation and control, being predictable is a fatal weakness. When someone always makes themselves available to others, always wants to help, always sacrifices, that person's intentions become clear. And in a power dynamic, that opens space for manipulators. Kindness, when not balanced with discernment, and boundaries, turns into a tool of control, not genuine help. The manipulator notices this and begins to exploit that predictability. As Machiavelli also said, men are so simple that he who deceives will always find someone who will let himself be deceived. They know that if someone doesn't know how to say no, they can ask for more, demand more, and push that person's limits without fear of consequence. Machiavelli, with all his political experience and observation of human behavior, never advocated for pure evil. What he did advocate for, however, was the awareness that, to be effective in a competitive and intrigue-filled world, you need to be more than good. You needed to be strategic. Kindness, if misused, becomes a vulnerability. And going back to his famous question, would you rather be loved or respected? The question was simple, but carried tremendous weight. Machiavelli knew that if you chose to be only loved, you could be easily manipulated. Sympathy and kindness, without a clear understanding of your own boundaries and goals, can lead others to see you as someone who is always available, someone not in control of their own life. Now, if you were respected, the story would be different. Respect is not given easily. It is earned through consistent actions, firm decisions, and the ability to set clear boundaries. Respecting yourself and making others respect you is not just about being rigid or distant, but also about understanding the balance between being good and being strategic. In the context of manipulators, Machiavelli warns us that if you are too kind, without understanding the intentions of those around you, you will end up falling into the traps they set. And those traps can be emotional, psychological, or even financial. He knew, and we know today, that the power of those who control others comes from knowing how to manipulate their emotions and needs. That's why Machiavelli teaches us that being too good is not a virtue if it means giving up our own control. He advises us to use kindness wisely, so it does not become a weakness, but a strategic tool. And in the end, that's what differentiates those who keep power from those who let themselves be dominated. You don't need to become a cold or calculating person, but you do need to understand when kindness can be your strength and when it can be your downfall. Machiavelli wasn't telling us to be cruel, but to be smart, to understand that not everyone is playing on the same team. So next time you feel pressured to be kinder than necessary or to give up your own comfort for the needs of others, ask yourself, am I being loved or respected? Because in the end, the answer to that question may determine whether you are being controlled or if you are in control. You don't have to become a villain. You don't need to become insensitive or selfish, but you do need to understand that boundaries are also a form of kindness, especially when you set them to protect yourself. True kindness doesn't mean submitting to others or giving up your own well-being. It means being kind, but also firm in your decisions. Learn to say no without guilt. There's nothing wrong with refusing requests that are excessive or that put you in a difficult situation. By saying no, you're protecting your mental health, your time, and your energy. That, instead of being selfish, is a way of taking care of yourself. If you really want to be a good person, you need to understand that kindness begins with self-care. Be wary of excessive compliments, especially when they come with hidden requests. You're so amazing, always so willing to help. I knew I could count on you to... When someone starts a compliment with that tone, be alert. Excessive praise may be the manipulator's way of putting you in a position of obligation. Don't fall into that trap. Machiavelli, in The Prince, said that friendship must be built on merit, not favors. So if someone is trying to convince you that your kindness is a favor to them, be suspicious. Don't be convinced that being good means being submissive. True kindness doesn't require you to submit to others or to put your needs last. Kindness, combined with respect, means being strong enough to act fairly, but without allowing yourself to be exploited. Being good is not being weak. Being good is knowing when it's time to help and when it's time to protect yourself. You can be kind and strong. There's no contradiction in that. True strength comes from being able to maintain your kindness without letting it weaken you. And to do that, you must understand balance. In The Prince, Machiavelli warns us that the prince who is loved by all will never be respected, and the prince who is feared by all will never be loved. This shows that to be a balanced person, you must cultivate strength that doesn't depend on constant approval from others. Kindness must come from a place of self-trust, not from a need for external validation. Kindness is undoubtedly one of the greatest human strengths. It builds bridges, strengthens bonds, and improves society. But when used against you, it can become your greatest weakness. The manipulator knows this and will exploit your kindness to achieve their own goals. You need to be wise enough to recognize when your gentleness is being used against you. So tell me, are you being kind or are you being controlled? Reflect on that and take control of your own life. Don't allow your kindness to become a tool for manipulation. Be kind, but know where to draw the line. If this video made you reflect, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who also needs to wake up. True kindness comes from strength, self-care, and wisdom. Don't let misplaced kindness destroy what you've built. After all, as Machiavelli said, those who trust too much in others end up in their hands. Be strong, be conscious, and never lose your essence.